This week, a full body of kids' favourites, a future head of state, and a bare bottom. Today, we're in Manchester at the Children's Global Media Summit, a meeting of those who make the content that our children will be watching in the coming years. It's an event with some very important speakers.
Parents, like Catherine and me, are raising the first generation of digitally immersed children. And this gives us many reasons to be optimistic about the impact of technology on childhood.
And before the Duke of Cambridge gave his speech to the audience, I managed to grab a quick interview with one of the most talked about couples in the country. So how are you finding the conference so far? Because, to be honest, my kids care more about the staff of the Furchester Hotel than the powers that be behind the scenes. But the discussions taking place here will shape the type of content that children will watch in the future and how content providers will meet the expectations of the next generation of viewers. Forget Generation X, Y and Z. You're all over the hill. Now we're talking about Generation U, the unlimited generation. Yep, today's children will grow up expecting unlimited access to information and entertainment on demand. The big names are here, seeking to educate by taking classes on virtual field trips. Under the water in a coral reef. Now, if you want to know what children are up to, why not ask them? Kids Insight runs anonymous questionnaires for 400 kids every week to gather data about the latest trends, hottest new characters, and online habits. Because, of course, it's not all about what kids need. There is a big industry that wants to make money here and target those young minds with messages and merchandise.
We do find surprising the amount of children that are viewing YouTube without any parental guidance or oversight. We find it's probably about a third, maybe just less than a third of under 10s. Their parents aren't monitoring what they watch on YouTube at all, which is quite shocking.
And that's also a theme here, how to protect children from harmful content and stop them being exploited by the increasingly personal, interactive and immersive technologies that they're using.
I believe strongly in the positive power of technology, but I am afraid that I find the situation alarming. My alarm does not come from childhood immersion in technology per se. My alarm comes from the fact that so many parents feel that they are having to make up the rules as they go along. We've put the most powerful information technology in human history into the hands of our children. Yet we do not yet understand its impact on adults, let alone the very young.
It's a massive concern for many parents, but there are moves to try and make children more savvy about online safety, as Laura Lewington found out when she went back to school.
The opportunity for kids to access information and learn has never been bigger. But with that comes a challenge. The threats online are clear to see, but an increasing number of children are becoming aware of the dangers and how to steer clear.
Never click on a link in an email unless you are absolutely sure who it's from.
Basically, these are how many attackers are coming in because the firewall is off.
An investigation into paedophiles using live streaming apps led to nearly 200 arrests, including teachers, medics and law enforcers. A batch of leading brands suspended advertising from YouTube after suspect comments remained beside videos featuring children. This not long after the site hit the headlines when its algorithms were found to be pulling inappropriate content into its kids app, which was then viewed by children. Of course, the company protests it does all it can, age-restricting content in the main app as well as aiming to protect those using YouTube Kids altogether. In light of the most recent issues, it's also adding an extra 10,000 moderators to act alongside the software aiming to keep kids safe. But with such a wealth of information out there, who can actually be held accountable for what is published?
First and foremost, the tech companies themselves need to be held accountable. And I mean at the CEO level. All of these platforms have an enormous responsibility to the kids and families in their audience because they're making billions of dollars off of them. Second, we also need to see some kind of regulation that Ofcom or others could provide that would say this is appropriate or not on these platforms. Because if you think that tech companies will self-regulate, then you are kidding yourself. Parents have a huge role to play. It's not so much that you can just say, hey, it's the industry's problem, but as a parent, you need to educate yourself. This is the same as teaching your kid how to walk across the street and not get hit by a car. And this is really the world they're living in.
But at the same time, the benefits of this sort of online access can't be ignored. Here at this central London school, pupils are taking part in IDEA, the digital and enterprise version of the Duke of Edinburgh Awards. Hello, so what are you all up to here?
So I'm doing the e-safety badge.
The challenges are open and free to all ages, even adults, to provide real-life skills, and they can be done anywhere, anytime. The pupils here at Westminster Academy are covering a range of subjects, including creating virtual reality, the importance of colour in photography.
It's in essence the different types of colour shaders. If you want to get like an eerie retro feel, you would reduce the hue and saturation.
As well as some of the more serious issues surrounding safety online. What are the main things that you feel that you've come away from this so far, having learned?
For all my devices, I used to put the same password. So if the hacker knew one of my passwords, they would be able to get anything. So I learned that and I tried to change my passwords for everything, even if it's a school website. So I'm just going to carry on with the badge.
Are there any negatives that you feel from the fact that everything is out there and available?
You just have to be careful of false news. There are always just these little like clickbait articles that always pop up, and then once I've read in, I've realised, yeah, this doesn't really sound right.
Of course, it's quite a new problem, really, the fake news issue. How do you see this is going to play out in the future? Do you think you're always going to be a bit wary when you read something as to whether it's true or not?
Undoubtedly, but that is one massive advantage of having that. Just in the fact that we have become more critical as a society, we are less likely to be susceptible.
It's not just about whether or not you've done GCSE computer science. It's about can you actually manipulate or apply the knowledge. And so we're trying to do it in such a way as it gives them the opportunity of learning it themselves, whilst at the same time making them aware of the dangers and pitfalls that we all see on a daily basis.
Over 100,000 of these bronze awards have been achieved, the silver to be released next April. And in a world where fake news has dominated the true headlines, targeting us on what to think or buy, there will be a category called critical thinking, focusing on just that. It'll teach the importance of how to substantiate, verify and trust sources. And at the Children's Global Media Summit, the BBC also announced a scheme teaching how to avoid fake news. Up to 1,000 secondary schools and sixth forms across the UK will take part, with mentoring in how to sift out facts from fiction. But the real news right now is that whilst there may still be a way to go for things to be totally safe online, kids are becoming more aware, and maybe at some point soon will be the ones educating the grown-ups.
You see, it's usually
I can't
done.
actually see it so small. Yes, I see.
Yes, I have finished the badge.
Well done. How are you feeling?
Woohoo!
Now, this year marks 10 years since Kenyans started using mobile money, known as M-Pesa. Now, that has transformed the lives of millions of people, allowing access to financial transaction services in even the most remote parts of the country. Mobile money is linked to your phone number and allows those without a bank account to make payments via text message. Even the poorest can spend and top up as little as 10 shillings. That's the equivalent to 10 US cents. What's been interesting, though, is the infrastructure and services that have developed off the back of these mobile money payments. Kate Russell went to the slums of Nairobi to meet a young family who are benefiting from the latest feature to be linked to the platform.
Almost half of Nairobi's 6 million people live in the slums. Their existence a daily grind to put food and even water on the table. The vast majority of Kenyans don't have any health insurance, and in areas like this where the poorest and often overlooked in society live, finding enough money to pay for basic health care can fall pretty low on the list of priorities. Susan lives in the Sinai district slum, the whole family, including 4 kids, sharing this single room. Despite the struggle, she's made a commitment to save money for baby Peace's healthcare using electronic wallet M-TIBA.
When the day for me to go to the clinic arrived, I'd managed to save 210 shillings in my M-TIBA account. At the hospital, I was able to use that money for my treatment. I checked my account balance and realised that the cost was taken care of by a bonus out of my savings. The money I had saved initially remained intact. I was really motivated to save more and more, and even managed to save enough for my maternity fee.
The service runs on M-Pesa. It encourages people to save by offering bonus credit incentives and ring-fencing funds to be spent only on healthcare services from one of the country's 600 registered clinics.
We've seen the numbers of people who are not affording to pay for healthcare going down, because as they come, we encourage them to enroll them to M-TIBA. Like now we are seeing about 500 kids in a month, which is compared to 2013, we were seeing about 100 children per month.
Previously, when they got sick, what would they do?
You'll find most of them actually probably used to do self-medication, or some of them just wait until it is too late. When they go to the hospital, probably their condition has gone so far away.
Susan's sister-in-law works as a hairdresser in the city. She wanted to help out with the new baby's medical expenses, and M-TIBA allowed her to transfer money from her own M-Pesa wallet.
We chose M-TIBA because of its benefits. For example, if you save and hit a target of 100 shillings in a month, you get a bonus of 50 shillings. That is why we preferred M-TIBA, because also there is no saving limit.
In just over a year, M-TIBA has gained over 1 million users and processed more than 100 million shillings of medical transactions. But it's also collecting data that can help clinics like Olive Link plan better provision of services and stock when funding and storage space is so limited.
Right now we get some very good aggregated data in terms of people's health utilization habits, even transaction data, how much does treating maybe a malaria case cost. And this helps a lot even in planning and also at policy level, because then we can even be able to influence the policy of our country to better handle health issues.
Susan is just one of many Kenyans who've realised the importance of preventative care through the targeted incentives and advice offered by M-TIBA.
Susan is like many other Susans out there. Previously, they've not always had these tools to be able to plan and put some money aside for their healthcare. But now, with their mobile phone, they're able to do this.
Welcome to the Week in Tech. It was the week Pokemon Go announced that it would be adding weather effects to mimic the real world, and plans for a sad poop emoji were flushed away. It was also the week that Facebook released a new chat app for children under the age of 13. Messenger Kids has parental controls, and Facebook says it won't collect data or display ads on the service, but critics warn it could get kids addicted sooner. Nissan announced plans to launch robot taxis in Japan. They'll adapt the Nissan Leaf to be summoned via an app from March next year. And electric black cabs were launched in London in an attempt to improve air quality. However, some say the extra £10,000 cost to buy one may put cabbies off going green. Over 31 million users' data was leaked after third-party smartphone keyboard app AI Type left a database without password protection. It allowed access to phone numbers, email addresses and text types using the keyboard. And finally, the Mona Lisa has been recreated on a microscopic scale using a process called DNA origami. The technique folds a long strand of DNA into a set shape and has previously been used to create a minuscule version of Starry Night by Vincent van Gogh. And here's one I made earlier.
Back at the Children's Global Media Summit, we're talking about the future of storytelling and which technologies content makers and commissioners might be using to capture children's attention in the future. Will it be VR? Will it be interactive stories? Will it be narratives driven by artificial intelligence? After the panel, I caught up with one of my guests, Resh Sidhu, the creative director for VR at visual effects house Framestore.
VR is so immersive. You can, I guess, tackle these big issues, but there's also a danger, isn't there, with children. You know, they're glued to their phones or their TVs, but to actually stick them in such an immersive environment, what do you have to think about?
There's so many things. When it comes to kids, there are a number of parameters that we have to really think about, and we have to be really cautious of what we're doing. There's an age limit on the headsets, it's 13 and plus, and that's there for a reason. And when we're designing any experience for our audience, it's about understanding the audience, understanding how long an experience should be. Does it get uncomfortable after a while? Does it affect their behaviour? Does it affect their interaction? And I think all of those things we take into consideration. And part of why we're working with Goldsmiths is we really want to tackle those issues head on in terms of a great VR experience, an amazing story can actually do a lot of good. And so we're bringing the art and the science together.
What kind of VR projects are you working on for children at Framestore?
We recently worked with Warner Brothers and J.K. Rowling on Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. Now that is an audience that starts as young as 3-year-olds that love Harry Potter and the Wizarding World, all the way up to 80-year-old grandparents. And ultimately what great storytelling is about is taking somebody beyond a movie and taking them to the heart of a story, and that's really, really powerful.
Is it more than just VR though? Are we fooling ourselves to think that the future of storytelling is virtual reality? There are many other technologies. Should we be thinking about all of those?
Since the time of cavemen, we've been wired to tell stories. What's happening with VR is it becomes another medium, another platform on which to tell a story. It's never going to replace a book. It's never going to replace going to the movies and watching an amazing Star Wars film with your parents. It's never going to happen. But what it does allow us as storytellers, as artists, as directors, is a blank canvas, another canvas to help engage people. Why do we tell stories? We want to immerse somebody in another world. We want to bring delight. We want to scare them. We want to educate them. All of that is storytelling, and what VR allows us is this amazing new platform that has a profound effect on how we feel. So VR adds this new layer of excitement, and I think it's part of the future of storytelling. It is not the future, it's part of the future.
Here's a nice little AR app for kids. You download and print off your favourite character from CBeebies, colour it in however you like. Then you pick up your tablet and look, there's the duck. You can do other characters too. For example, here's my favourite go-getter, Zuli, who has the power and the speed, and she zooms away in the broomstick. Not that I'm a fan or anything. And from some pretty decent visual effects there to some absolutely top-of-the-range visual effects now in the form of one of the biggest films of the year, Paddington 2. And don't just take my word for it either. Ask Rotten Tomatoes, where it scored 100%. Well, we sat down with the man who is responsible for bringing Paddington from Peru to the big screen for a world-exclusive look at how he did it. Parents, spoiler alert, we're about to take Paddington apart.
Mr. Gruber. Oh, what's this? Ah, this is London.
One of the key areas that we begin with is we call previs. It's pre-visualization. It's working in an extremely lo-fi fashion to be able to very quickly explore camera angles, moves, working with animators who have a familiarity with Paddington himself. Filming without Paddington, it makes the process extremely abstract, that's for sure. And so we employ a variety of techniques. There's, for the best part, a stand-in called Lauren, who is about Paddington's height, and she would give us, everyone on the set, a brilliant insight into Paddington's presence. You don't want to make the work in post very difficult or expensive by having to paint lots out, so you try and minimise what's in the place of Paddington on the shot that you will finally use. I think the things that are most difficult are where Paddington's interacting with objects or people in the plate, so you always need somebody to do that, to create either the sort of, touch the cloth that is going to be touched. There's a statistic that if you put all the man hours together, it would be 75 years of someone's life to do all the visual effects on Paddington, so that sort of gives you a bit of perspective on how much work's involved. Fundamental was that he lives in, that you would believe him. He had to be hyper-realistic. He had to live in the real space. But, we're always very careful not to reveal too much whites of the eyes, to have eyes that sort of look too cartoony, to contain all the gestures. It's very, again, often an animator will first pick up Paddington, they'll go for very kind of obvious statements, and Paddington's not about that. It's like, well, take it all away. It's all in what's absolutely necessary and what's, it's a sort of small shift of the brows here and a dart there that tells you he's thinking. And I think, once you get into that zone of the small, then you can start sort of engineering these, sort of carefully placing all of these little beats. That's when, starts to feel genuine and live and breathe as a real character and something that you can, hopefully fall in love with. The train chase, obviously, is a sort of particular set piece, which is inordinately complicated, but even within the prison, the ceilings have been extended in the atrium. There's a huge amount of set extensions, and when we're lifting off in the balloon and he's escaping with Knuckles, the entire prison exterior is a fabrication that's CGI. Simple little scenes like the one where he travels through the prison and it's transforming, and you're seeing his effect on the place, and everyone's making cakes. I mean, that was a massively complicated sequence because of the sort of very artisan sort of way in which we wanted to make this prison transform, and that sort of Michel Gondry-like sort of stop-motionally appearance and musical sort of effect of all of the things. It took a lot of planning, many passes of motion control, backwards and forwards, and exploration of what would work, sort of bringing things on and off. Almost infinite possibility there, that we needed to play through. But no, there's a lot of augmentation all the way through the film. I think probably almost every shot you could point at something and go, okay, well that photograph's been inserted in that frame, or that sky has been changed there, or that bridge didn't exist, and yeah, there's a lot of that stuff, but all very understated and underplayed.
Ow. Thank you, Mr. Brown. And that's it from the Children's Global Media Summit. Did you enjoy it, DM? Yeah, me too. Don't forget, we live on Twitter at BBC Click and on Facebook, where you can find all the latest tech news throughout the week. Thanks for watching, and we will see you soon.